God's love teaches me to trust even when I cannot see the solution. There are moments when you look at your life and whisper, God, I don't understand any of this. You've prayed, you've waited, you've done everything you could, and still, the answers seem hidden. You start wondering if maybe heaven has gone quiet. But it hasn't. You see, God's love doesn't stop working just because you can't see it. Sometimes it hides inside the silence to teach you what real trust feels like, the kind that stands even when the ground beneath you trembles. This message isn't about having all the answers. It's about finding peace in the middle of confusion, about learning to believe that even when everything looks still, love is still moving. Because one day, you'll realize the solution was never missing. It was being formed in the unseen, wrapped in the patience of God's timing. So, take a deep breath. This isn't the end of your story. It's just the chapter where God is teaching you how to trust in His love. Even when you cannot see the solution, there are seasons when the sky feels sealed shut. You kneel to pray, but your words fall back on you like echoes in an empty room. You look for signs, for movement, for even the smallest hint that God still sees you, and all you find is quiet. You start wondering if maybe you did something wrong, if maybe heaven forgot your name. You watch others receive answers while your own heart grows heavier with every day that passes. And somewhere between the waiting and the wondering, your faith begins to shake. You whisper, Lord, are you still here? Or have I been talking to the dark? But what if the silence isn't a punishment? What if it's the sound of God's love doing its deepest work? Because silence is where trust is born. It's the space where your heart learns to believe without proof, to lean on His presence even when you can't feel it. Sometimes God hides the evidence of His love so you'll learn to see it differently. He doesn't stop working, He just stops showing you how. He's teaching you that faith isn't about noise or signs or speed. It's about surrender. That holy stillness that whispers, even here, even now, I trust you. The silence that once felt cruel begins to change shape. You start to notice tiny mercies, the breath in your lungs, the strength to keep moving, the unexpected peace that visits you in the middle of the night. Those are not coincidences. They are love in disguise. They are proof that even when you can't see the solution, God is still the answer. Heaven's silence doesn't mean absence, it means intimacy. God is closer than your fear, working in ways your eyes can't trace. He doesn't rush your story because He's writing it carefully, one unseen line at a time. So if all you hear tonight is quiet, don't lose heart. The silence is not empty. It's filled with purpose, filled with preparation, filled with love still moving beneath the surface. He's not ignoring you. He's inviting you to a deeper kind of faith, a faith that stands without evidence, a trust that breathes without answers, a peace that holds even when heaven seems silent. The hardest part of faith is not the waiting, it's the not knowing what comes next, not knowing why things happened the way they did, not knowing if the prayer you whispered months ago is still echoing somewhere in heaven, or if it's already been forgotten. That's where fear sneaks in, quiet at first, then louder each day. It tells you that maybe God's love has run out for you, that maybe this time you've gone too far, failed too deeply, believed too little. It convinces you that you're lost, standing in a fog with no direction, no map, no light. But listen, the absence of clarity is not the absence of God. You're not lost. You're being led in ways you can't yet see. God's love doesn't always lead with sight. Sometimes it leads with trust, the kind that holds your hand through the dark and whispers, just one step at a time. We crave control because it feels safe. We want answers because they quiet the noise inside us. But God's love calls us into a higher kind of safety, not the safety of knowing, but the safety of being known. Even when you can't see what's ahead, He sees you. Even when you can't trace His hand, He's tracing every detail of your heart. The fear of not knowing is where trust begins. It's where your faith stops depending on the visible and starts breathing through the invisible. It's in the not knowing that your soul learns the rhythm of surrender. Not the kind that gives up, but the kind that says, even without answers, I will not let go. When you start to feel the panic rise, the urge to fix, to rush, to make something happen, pause. Breathe. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are exactly where love needs you to be for the next chapter of your story to unfold. Because the fear of not knowing is not meant to break you. It's meant to prepare you. To stretch your faith until it no longer depends on sight. To teach your heart that even when everything looks uncertain, love remains certain. To remind you that you were never walking through this alone, you've just been walking through trust. So don't fight the fog. Walk through it with your hands open. Because the one who sees the end from the beginning is already guiding you through the middle. And when the time is right, what was once hidden will make perfect sense. Faith doesn't always stand tall. Sometimes it trembles. Sometimes it whispers instead of shouts. Sometimes it looks like you, tired, uncertain, holding on to a prayer that no longer feels alive. You see, no one tells you that faith can ache, that believing while everything falls apart feels like standing barefoot on broken glass. You say, I trust you, God, but a small voice inside still wonders, what if this time you don't come through? You want to believe with your whole heart, yet there's a fracture, a quiet fear that maybe your hope has been misplaced. But listen, trembling faith is still faith. It's the kind that heaven treasures most because it's real. It's born in the middle of pain, not at the end of it. It's the kind of faith that doesn't depend on feelings, because feelings change with the wind. It's the kind that keeps breathing even when the miracle hasn't arrived yet. God's love isn't disappointed in your shaking hands. He doesn't demand perfection. He desires closeness. When your faith trembles, His arms steady it. When your confidence wavers, His grace fills the space between fear and belief. He never asks you to fake strength, only to stay close. Remember the moment Peter began to sink? The water didn't scare Jesus. The reaching did. Because trust is not proven by walking perfectly, it's proven by reaching again. Every time you lift your heart and say, help me trust you, even here, heaven leans closer. So if your faith is trembling, let it. If your prayers feel weak, whisper them anyway. God doesn't grade your faith. He holds it. He takes the fragments, the exhaustion, the tears, and turns them into something sacred. There's a beauty in fragile belief, a purity that only brokenness can birth. Because when faith trembles and you still choose to stay, that's when trust becomes real. That's when love becomes stronger than fear. And one day, when you look back, you'll realize that the moments you thought you were losing faith were actually the moments when it was being refined, stripped of illusions, shaped by grace, strengthened by love. So don't be ashamed of trembling. The ground may shake beneath you, but the one who holds you never will. Waiting feels holy only when it's over. But while you're in it, it feels like slow-motion heartbreak, a silence that stretches too long, a hope that fades a little more each morning. You keep telling yourself to stay strong, to be patient, to trust God's timing. But inside, something is unraveling. You start wondering how much longer your heart can keep believing in what it can't see. The truth is, waiting isn't just about time. It's about transformation. It's where God quietly reshapes your soul, peeling away the layers of control you didn't even know you had. He uses the ache of delay to teach you something that can't be learned in comfort. Surrender. God's love doesn't rush the process because it's not just trying to give you an answer. It's trying to make you whole. Every pause has a purpose. Every unanswered prayer is preparing you for the moment when what you receive won't just fill your hands but heal your heart. But when you're in that middle space between prayer and fulfillment, it hurts. It feels like walking in circles, praying in the dark, wondering if your faith is foolish or your hope naive. And yet, something beautiful happens in that breaking. Your prayers stop being demands and start becoming conversation. Your faith stops being performance and starts becoming relationship. You start to realize that maybe God isn't holding back the blessing. Maybe He's holding you until you're strong enough to receive it. There's a quiet shift that happens when the waiting finally breaks you open. You stop asking when, God, and start whispering however you will. It's not defeat, it's the beginning of peace. Because when you no longer need the answer to trust His heart, that's when trust becomes real. And in that surrender, the pain softens. The silence stops feeling cruel. You begin to sense something sacred happening in the unseen, a love that was never delayed, only deliberate. So if you're still waiting, don't mistake this moment for absence. This is where God is closest, not fixing things, but forming you. He's turning your waiting room into holy ground. He's teaching you how to live in peace even before the promise arrives. Because one day, when you look back, you'll realize the waiting wasn't wasted. It was where your faith stopped being fragile and became fire. Doubt doesn't always arrive like thunder. Sometimes it walks in quietly, disguised as reason. It whispers things that sound logical. If God was really with you, you'd see a sign by now. If His love was real, it wouldn't hurt this much. You try to pray, but your own thoughts echo back louder than your faith. You remember the promises. You remember how certain you once felt. But the longer the silence stretches, the heavier the questions grow. And somewhere inside you start to wonder, maybe I believed too much. Maybe I misunderstood what faith was supposed to feel like. But let me tell you something that God's love keeps proving again and again. Faith isn't the absence of doubt. It's the decision to keep walking even while doubt walks beside you. You see, doubt doesn't disqualify you. It reveals your humanity. Even the strongest believers trembled in the middle of uncertainty. Moses questioned his calling. David cried, "Why, Lord, have you forsaken me?" Even Jesus felt the weight of silence in Gethsemane. So if you find yourself doubting, it doesn't mean you're losing faith. It means you're being invited deeper. Because faith without questions is comfort, but faith with questions is courage. Real trust isn't proven when everything feels clear. It's proven when nothing does and you still choose to believe anyway. When doubt whispers, love whispers louder. It says, "I know you don't understand right now, but you're still mine." It says, "Even your uncertainty cannot push me away." It says, "Your heart can shake, and I will still hold you steady." And little by little, something shifts inside you. You realize you don't have to fight your doubt. You just have to surrender it. You don't have to be fearless, you just have to be honest. You don't have to pretend you're strong, or you just have to stay near. Because every time you choose faith again, even trembling, the darkness loses a little more of its power. Every time you whisper, "God, I still trust you," heaven hears the sound of victory. So don't fear your doubt. Bring it into the light. Speak it in prayer. Because the same God who calmed the storm outside can calm the one inside you. And one day you'll look back and realize the very place where doubt tried to break you was where trust was born anew. There comes a moment when your heart grows too tired to keep pretending it's strong. You've prayed until your words ran out, hoped until hope itself felt fragile, and tried to believe even when belief felt heavy. You reach that invisible line where faith no longer feels like victory. It feels like exhaustion. And in that place you whisper what might be the most powerful prayer of all. "God, I don't understand anymore, but I still choose you." That's the beginning of surrender. Not the kind that gives up, but the kind that lets go. You start realizing that maybe faith was never meant to be about fighting harder, but about resting deeper. Maybe trust isn't measured by how long you hold on, but by how willingly you open your hands and release control. Because the truth is, you were never meant to carry everything alone. You were meant to lean, and yet surrender is terrifying, isn't it? It feels like falling without knowing where you'll land. It feels like walking blindfolded, guided only by whispers of grace. But that's exactly where God's love meets you. In the freefall, not the certainty. Love catches what fear cannot. It doesn't remove the storm, It steadies you inside it. It doesn't erase the questions. It reminds you that you're held even in the dark. There's a strange kind of peace that comes when you finally stop trying to control everything. When you stop asking when and start saying whenever. When you stop demanding why me and start trusting use me. That's when faith stops being a concept and becomes oxygen, something you breathe without effort because you finally realize it's what keeps you alive. Surrender changes the way you see everything. You stop fighting the silence and start listening to it. You stop fearing what you don't know and start finding comfort in the mystery. You begin to see that maybe the reason God hasn't changed your situation yet is because He's still changing you. And that realization, as painful as it is, becomes sacred. You start to notice small signs that you couldn't see before. The calm in your chest when you should be anxious. The strength in your voice when you thought you had none left. The peace that appears for no logical reason at all. That's not coincidence. That's love proving that even unseen, it's still here. Surrender isn't a single moment. It's a daily decision. It's waking up each morning and saying, even if nothing changes today, I will still trust you. It's closing your eyes at night and realizing that peace isn't found in answers but in alignment. It's no longer trying to pull God into your plan but stepping quietly into His. And in that sacred exchange, your will for His, something beautiful begins to happen. You stop needing to understand to feel safe. You stop striving to be perfect to feel loved. You stop chasing outcomes and start resting in presence. Because once your faith becomes surrender, fear loses its home inside you. You realize that what you called waiting was really preparation. What you called loss was redirection. And what you called silence was actually love speaking in a language deeper than words. So if your faith feels tired, let it rest, not in defeat, but in divine hands. Let it breathe again. Let it stop striving. Because when you stop trying to control the outcome, you make space for God to surprise you. And one day when you look back, you'll see that surrender wasn't the end of your faith. It was the moment it finally became real. Letting go is one of the hardest lessons love will ever teach you. Because deep down, you still want to believe that if you just hold on a little longer, pray a little harder, do a little more, maybe things will finally make sense. But there comes a moment when your soul whispers the truth you've been trying to ignore. You can't carry this anymore. Not because you're weak, but because it was never yours to hold forever. Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop controlling. It means you finally understand that your hands were never meant to hold what only God's hands can heal. It means releasing what hurts without needing to hate it first. It's the quiet courage of saying, God, I trust you with what I cannot fix. At first it feels like loss. It feels like stepping into a void where everything you knew disappears. But slowly, gently, God's love begins to show you that what you thought was falling apart was actually falling into place. The weight you've been carrying begins to lift, piece by piece, and for the first time in a long time, you can breathe again. That's not emptiness. That's freedom. You see, strength isn't proven by how tightly you hold on. It's revealed by how gracefully you let go. Because true strength doesn't come from control. It comes from trust. It's born in the moment when you unclench your fists and open your palms, not in surrender to defeat, but in surrender to divine wisdom. Letting go doesn't mean pretending the pain doesn't exist. It means allowing grace to meet you inside it. It means choosing peace over answers and faith over fear. It means walking away from what drains you so you can walk toward what restores you. Because sometimes, holding on keeps you from healing. Sometimes the very thing you're afraid to release is the thing standing between you and your breakthrough. You might cry when you finally let go. You might feel a strange emptiness, like the quiet after a storm. But pay attention. That silence isn't loneliness, it's sacred space. It's where God begins to speak again, softly, tenderly, as if to say, see, you never fell. You were always in my arms. And that's when the miracle happens. You begin to see strength not as resistance, but as rest. Not as power, but as peace. You realize that the hands you once used to cling are now free to receive. The heart you thought was broken becomes open again, not to what was, but to what will be. Letting go doesn't erase the past. It redeems it. It allows the memories that once wounded you to become lessons that now shape you. It allows your scars to become stories of grace, not reminders of failure. Because the moment you release what was never yours to carry, you make space for what was always meant for you. So take a breath and unclench your soul. You don't have to fight anymore. You don't have to fix what only God can heal. You don't have to keep holding the pain that love is ready to lift. Letting go isn't losing control. It's finding peace. And sometimes, that's where your greatest strength is born. The unknown, that space between what you prayed for and what you haven't yet seen, can feel unbearable. It's the place where answers don't come easily, and time seems to stretch endlessly, mocking your faith. You wake up each day hoping for clarity, but all you find is another invitation to trust. And trust, when nothing makes sense, can feel like walking blindfolded through fog, guided only by the heartbeat of hope inside your chest. But what if the unknown isn't meant to scare you? What if it's meant to shape you? What if this in-between is not a punishment, but a sacred classroom where God's love teaches you the art of peace without proof? You see, faith isn't tested when you know the outcome. It's tested when you don't. When you have to wake up every morning and choose to believe that something beautiful is still being written in invisible ink. The unknown is the place where your heart learns to see differently, not through sight, but through surrender. At first it feels like loss. You lose control, certainty, predictability, all the things that once gave you comfort. But slowly, something new begins to bloom in the emptiness. Awareness. You start to notice the small mercies that had always been there, the breath that keeps coming, the sunrise that never fails, the peace that somehow finds its way back into your chest when you thought you'd forgotten how to feel it. The unknown becomes less of a threat and more of a threshold. It's not an ending. It's the space between caterpillar and butterfly, between seed and bloom, between what you were and what love is turning you into. It's uncomfortable because transformation always is. You're being unmade and remade by grace at the same time. God's love doesn't leave you lost in the dark. It teaches you to see in new ways, to notice the whispers instead of the noise, to feel His presence not in lightning bolts, but in the stillness that holds your shaking soul. The unknown becomes holy ground when you realize that what looks like confusion from your view is perfect choreography from His. Every delay, every detour, every moment of silence is part of a plan your human heart couldn't yet comprehend. The unknown isn't void, it's sacred design. And the longer you walk in it, the more you realize that you're not meant to have all the answers. You're meant to stay close to the one who does. There's beauty in not knowing because it teaches you to listen instead of predict. It humbles your heart. It opens your hands. It reminds you that even when you don't understand the path, you can still trust the presence. So when the uncertainty feels heavy, whisper this truth to your soul. I don't know where this road leads, but I know who walks beside me. And that's enough. Because the beauty of the unknown is not in what it hides. It's in who reveals Himself through it. There's a special kind of ache that comes when you've done everything right. Prayed, waited, believed, and still, nothing happens. You watch the days turn into weeks, the weeks into months, and slowly, your hope starts to thin out like fading light at dusk. You try to convince yourself that maybe it's just not the right time, but deep down, there's another whisper, one that's harder to silence. Maybe it's never coming. You see other people receiving their miracles, moving forward, smiling again, and you wonder why heaven seems to be skipping your name. You tell yourself you're fine, but there's a quiet pain beneath the surface, the kind that only the patient know, the pain of promises that haven't arrived. And you start to ask that question you once swore you'd never say out loud. God, are you late? But what if He isn't late at all? What if He's just building something bigger than what you were praying for? Because God's love doesn't move on your clock. It moves in perfect rhythm with eternity. And though your waiting feels endless, to him it's right on time. He's not delaying to punish you. He's pausing to prepare you. Sometimes God withholds the very thing you're asking for because he knows it would hurt you if you received it too soon. He waits until the foundation of your faith is strong enough to carry the blessing without breaking under its weight. He's not ignoring you. He's protecting you. Because real love doesn't rush. It refines. And yes, that refining burns. It strips away the illusion of control, the desperation for quick answers, the obsession with outcomes. It breaks your timeline so it can rebuild your trust. It empties your hands so they'll be ready to receive what's truly meant for you. Not what you demanded, but what will actually heal you. When God's timing feels too late, remember this. He's never missed an appointment in eternity. What feels like a delay from your perspective might just be perfect alignment from his. You see one moment, he sees the whole story. You see what's slipping away. He sees what's being born. And when the right moment comes, when your heart is ready, when the lesson has done its work, when the weight of waiting has turned into wisdom, the answer won't just arrive, it will fit. It will make sense in a way that brings you to tears. It will remind you why he asked you to wait. Because the blessing that comes too early can destroy you, but the one that comes in his timing will restore you. So if it feels too late, breathe. He's not ignoring your cries. He's synchronizing heaven and earth to deliver something that will not just change your situation but your soul. And when it finally comes, you'll whisper through your tears, "Now I see. You were never late. You were right on time." Healing doesn't start with the disappearance of pain. It begins with the gentle realization that pain no longer owns you. It happens slowly, quietly, like light seeping through the cracks of a heart that thought it was beyond repair. You don't even notice it at first. One morning, you wake up, and the memories that once made you cry now make you sigh. The wound that used to define you now feels distant, softened, surrounded by peace. That's how God's love heals, not always in miracles, but in moments. It doesn't rush in like thunder. It seeps into the corners of your being until you find yourself breathing differently, thinking differently, feeling differently. The sharp edges of your pain begin to round. The noise inside your mind starts to quiet. And you realize that healing isn't forgetting. It's remembering differently. It's remembering without the sting, without the bitterness, without the lie that it broke you forever. God's love doesn't erase your past. It redeems it. It takes what was meant to destroy you and turns it into the soil where strength grows. It takes the tears that once fell from despair and turns them into water for the garden of your soul. It shows you that what felt like the end was actually the beginning of a deeper, gentler version of yourself. But healing is rarely beautiful while it's happening. There are days when you'll feel like you're moving backward, when old pain resurfaces and you wonder if you've made any progress at all. That's part of the process, because love doesn't skip steps. It walks you through them. It sits with you in your mess. It touches the places you avoid. It speaks peace into the storms you try to silence. And little by little, something begins to shift. You start forgiving, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve to be free. You start letting go, not because it doesn't matter anymore, but because you finally trust that God is holding what you can't. You stop chasing closure and start embracing presence. You realize that healing isn't about returning to who you were before the pain. It's about becoming who you were meant to be through it. And then comes the miracle moment, quiet but powerful, when you realize the pain no longer controls the narrative. You can talk about it without trembling. You can look at it without breaking. You can thank God for it without confusion, because you finally see how His love was there through it all, stitching your soul together in places no human hand could reach. That's the beauty of divine healing. It doesn't just restore what was lost. It renews what was never fully alive. It brings you to a place where you no longer just survive the past. You shine through it. And you realize that every scar, every ache, Every unanswered question has become proof. Proof that God's love is not theory. It's reality. So don't rush your healing. Let love do what it was sent to do. Even when you don't feel it, it's working beneath the surface, rewriting your story with hands that never stopped holding you. And one day, when you look back, you'll smile through tears and whisper, "Now I understand that I wasn't just being healed, I was being remade." Peace doesn't always arrive in grand moments. It doesn't come with angels singing or fireworks lighting the sky. It arrives quietly, sometimes in the middle of an ordinary afternoon, sometimes while you're washing the dishes, sometimes when your heart is finally too tired to keep running from what it needs to face. It comes like a soft whisper to your spirit, "You're safe now." This peace is different from anything the world has ever offered you. It's not fragile, depending on circumstances to survive. It's not fleeting, disappearing the moment something goes wrong. No, this peace has roots. It's the kind that digs deep into the soil of your surrender, growing quietly even while the storms keep howling. God's love doesn't bring a peace that visits. It brings a peace that stays. It's the calm that remains after the tears, the silence that feels full instead of empty, the stillness that doesn't demand explanation. It's what happens when your soul finally stops fighting reality and starts trusting redemption. This kind of peace doesn't erase what hurt you. It transforms it. The same memories that once caused anxiety now bring gratitude. The same scars that once embarrassed you now remind you of survival. The same silence that once terrified you now feels like sanctuary. That's how you know it's not temporary calm. It's eternal restoration. And when peace comes to stay, something sacred happens inside you. You stop chasing what's next and start cherishing what is. You stop trying to earn God's love and begin to rest in it. You stop searching for signs that you're on the right path and begin to feel the quiet certainty that you already are. This peace doesn't come because everything around you has changed. It comes because you have. Your soul has learned to breathe differently. You no longer panic when you don't see progress here, because you've discovered that stillness can be holy too. You no longer confuse waiting with wasting, because you've seen what God can do in the dark. And perhaps most beautifully, this peace doesn't need permission to exist. It doesn't need everyone to understand you, agree with you, or walk with you. It's not dependent on applause or approval. It's the quiet confidence that even if the world misreads your story, God knows the truth of it. And that's enough. You start noticing beauty again, in the laughter of strangers, in the smell of rain, in the small miracles hiding inside ordinary days. You start feeling light again, not because life is perfect, but because you no longer need it to be. You realize that peace is not a destination. It's a decision to stay close to love no matter what happens. And once this peace takes root, nothing can take it away. Not fear, not failure, not time. Because this peace doesn't live in your circumstances. It lives in your connection to the one who calms every storm with a single word. Stay. So let it stay. Let it live in you, breathe through you, guide you. Let it become your new rhythm. Steady, soft, sacred. Because when God's love plants peace in your soul, it's not a visitor. It's home. Clarity doesn't come like lightning. It doesn't crash into your life and erase the confusion all at once. It comes softly, gradually, like the fog lifting after a long night, revealing the landscape that was always there but hidden from view. For so long you begged for understanding, cried for reasons, searched for meaning. And now, without realizing it, you start to see. You see how God's love was moving when you thought everything had stopped. You see how the detours weren't delays, they were protection. You see how the unanswered prayers were never rejection, they were redirection. You see that the silence wasn't punishment, it was preparation. And suddenly, all those moments that once felt like chaos begin to form a pattern. All those broken pieces start fitting together. Not perfectly, but purposefully. You start realizing that maybe the reason you couldn't see the solution before was because God wasn't trying to fix what was around you. He was fixing what was within you. There's a special kind of vision that only pain can teach you. It opens your eyes not to how things should have been, but to how sacred they actually are. It teaches you to notice grace in the smallest details. The kindness of a stranger, the strength in your voice, the calm in your chest that used to tremble. You begin to understand that miracles aren't always loud. Sometimes they're quiet shifts in perception that change everything. Clarity comes when you stop trying to make sense of God and start letting God make sense of you. When you stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start asking, "What is this shaping in me?" Because love's goal was never to explain. It was always to transform. You start forgiving yourself, not because you did everything right, but because you finally understand that you don't have to. You start forgiving others, not because they asked for it, but because peace demands it. You start embracing the person you've become, the one who has walked through fire and come out softer, wiser, and more alive than before. Clarity isn't about seeing the whole path. It's about recognizing that even in the dark, you were never walking alone. It's the moment you look back and realize that every step, every tear, every unanswered prayer carried you here, to this sacred knowing that love never left you, not even for a breath. And when you finally see clearly, gratitude takes the place of fear. You stop resenting the process and start revering it. You stop wishing for a different story and start thanking God for the one that taught you how to see through his eyes. Because when love opens your eyes, you realize that the solution you were searching for was never out there. It was being written inside you, line by line, in the language of trust. So you breathe deeply, blink away the last of the fog, and whisper the truth your soul now knows by heart. I wasn't lost. I was being led. Something changes deep within you once you've walked through the darkness and realized the light was never gone. You begin to move differently, not in haste, not in fear, but in peace. The same life that once felt heavy now feels sacred. Every breath, every sound, every sunrise seems to whisper, "You made it through." Living from the light doesn't mean you'll never face another storm. It means the storm no longer defines you. It means you've learned to carry peace as armor, to respond with love, even when the world shouts in anger. It means you've discovered a strength that doesn't come from trying harder. It comes from trusting deeper. You start to understand that the light of God's love isn't something you chase. It's something you carry. It lives in the way you forgive faster. It glows through the way you speak kindness when you could stay silent. It shines when you choose to hope again, even after everything tried to break you. You become a reflection of the love that never left you. And suddenly, you notice how different life feels when your heart is aligned with heaven. You're no longer trying to control the outcome. You're flowing with the rhythm of grace. You no longer need everyone to understand your journey. You've made peace with being misunderstood. You no longer fear tomorrow, because you've seen what love can do with broken things. Living from the light means walking as someone who knows that pain is not the end of the story. It means you've stopped asking, "Why me?" and started saying, "Thank you for choosing me to show what your love can do." Because now even the scars you once tried to hide have become evidence of grace. They tell the story of a God who never wastes suffering, who rebuilds souls stronger than before, softer yet steadier, wounded yet radiant. This light doesn't make you perfect. It makes you peaceful. It humbles you. It gives you eyes to see beyond the surface, to notice the hurting, to comfort the silent, to love without expectation. Because when you've walked with love through the valley, you don't just survive, you shine. And that's when you realize, the same light that carried you through the darkness now moves through you to carry others. Your story becomes someone else's hope. Your healing becomes someone else's reminder that God still restores. Your peace becomes proof that faith was never wasted. It was working all along. So keep living from the light. Even when shadows return, remember, they can't erase what's within you. You've seen too much grace to go back to fear. You've felt too much peace to return to chaos. The light that once found you has become the home where your soul now lives. And wherever you walk from here, may your steps glow quietly with that holy certainty. You were never in the dark. You were only learning how to see. There's a peace that arrives when you finally stop running. Not from the pain, not from the past, but from yourself. It's the quiet knowing that everything you've lived through, every heartbreak, every waiting season, every night of tears, was never wasted. Each moment was a thread, woven carefully by hands that never lost their grip on you. You see now that you were never walking alone, not for a single step. You look back and realize that even in the moments when you thought faith was gone, love was holding you together. Even when your prayers were silent, heaven was listening. Even when you couldn't see a way forward, God's love was already preparing one. And now here you are, standing in the light, stronger and softer, not because life got easier, but because you learned where true strength comes from. Trust was never about understanding the plan. It was about trusting the heart behind it. Faith was never about control. It was about surrender. And peace was never about having answers. It was about realizing you didn't need them to rest in love. You've learned that not seeing the solution doesn't mean it isn't there. It means you're being invited to live by faith, not sight, to believe that even in the unseen, God is working. He's not just solving problems, He's shaping souls. He's not just fixing what's broken, He's forming something eternal within you. And maybe now, as you breathe, you finally understand. All those moments when you felt forgotten were actually invitations. Invitations to discover a love that holds you, not because you're strong, but because you're His. You were never asked to be fearless, only faithful. Never asked to have all the answers, only to stay close. Never asked to carry the world, only to trust the one who does. So, wherever you find yourself today, pause. Let that peace wash over you again. You don't need to strive to be worthy of this love. You already are. You don't need to force what's not ready. It's coming in perfect time. You don't need to see the end of the story to know how it ends, because love always wins. You are seen. You are safe. You are loved, right here, right now, in ways deeper than you'll ever understand. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He shall direct your paths. Proverbs 3:5-6. You may not see the way, but He has already made it. You may not feel strong enough, but His strength is already carrying you. You may not understand the reason, but His love is still writing the purpose. Don't rush. Don't fear. Don't lose faith. The same God who held you in the silence is still guiding you in the light. And even when you cannot see the solution, His love is already leading you toward it.